Hello and welcome to the second part of our Zone tutorial. In this video, we're going to look at Zone's os-mod modes, from FM through to Exponential FM, distortion, amp and ring mod modes, insert effects, EQ, and master and output settings. We're also going to dive into some of the hidden options. So let's get started. Let's select two saw waves and oscillators 1 and 2, sync them up, add some shape, and dive deeper into Zone's various os-mod modes. Let's select Exponential FM. Here, you'll also find distortion settings from soft and hard through to triangular and multifold. Adjusting the exponential FM amount is one of my favourite sound creation tools within Zone. Let's hold down a C minor chord and see how this sounds. With a relatively light amount of modulation, a very realistic analog pad sound can be created. Let's increase the number of voices and their spread. Let's gradually increase the os-mod amount to its maximum value, adjust the voice unison spread, bring the os-mod amount back down, assign it to the grid, and gradually scale the value up across 32 steps. Let's click and drag the left and right locators to select steps 9 through 23. Right-clicking in the grid brings up a fade tool. Clicking on any of the individual columns adjusts its value individually. This is displayed either as an integer or a percentage value in the top left of the grid. Let's dive deeper into Zone's parameter sequencer window. Let's start with a dice. From the first part of our tutorial, we can see how clicking this randomizes all lane data. Now we're going to randomize individual lane data. This can be done either by selecting from the drop-down menu or command clicking anywhere in the grid. Any combination of steps on any lane can be selected by dragging the left and right locators. Clicking on individual step numbers will mute them. Clicking again will unmute them. Let's go back to our lane modifier tools. Let's flip our steps vertically, horizontally, and back to an upward fade position. Clicking the rectangular icon will bring up a selection of Zone's unique lane presets. I've chosen 4 to the floor. Let's get all 32 steps going. Change the lane rate, adjust the global sequencer swing value, select another lane preset of the 35 available types. Let's go with 16s. Gated 16s, upward exponential fade, flipped horizontally to become a downward fade, flipped again vertically this time, back to where we were, randomized, copied and pasted onto an empty lane ready for assignment. Let's assign this lane. Let's use filter cutoff. So we're going to go for an upward fade using our right click fade tool. Let's zoom back out. Let's dive into the options menu by clicking the Zone logo and tick the default parameter lane ramp box. And what this does is make sure that once a new parameter lane is assigned, it defaults to an upward ramp. You can of course switch this option off to ensure an empty lane when a new parameter assignment is made. Now we have filter resonance assigned. Let's randomize this lane by command clicking in it and reducing some of those top ear values. Let's hold an F minor chord down now and zoom back out. Let's mute some of the global sequence steps by clicking in these yellow rectangles. Clicking again turns steps back on. Command clicking in the global step lane randomizes the step mutes. Alt clicking in the lane re-enables all steps. Let's go back to individual lane speeds and adjust these. Click and drag our global sequencer swing value. Let's re-trigger the sequencer clock by unholding the note. Zone sequencer can also play back different probabilities of steps. Let's switch to note mode to see this in action. Let's select parameter and note mode and start adjusting the probability or chance value. Dragging this amount all the way to 100% plays back all the steps in the sequence. The sequencer clock can also be key triggered or not by clicking the key trig LED. When the LED is lit, each time a key is pressed, the sequence lanes are triggered and re-triggered. Let's hold note again and set the rate of each lane to follow the global sequence rate. Zone has two different parameter sequence lane types, bipolar and unipolar. Bipolar values, such as pitch, have their own unique lane presets. Let's pick the first one, a simple up and down pattern across 2 octaves. Now we're going to pick the same for our velocity lane, a gate pattern for our gate lane, a different setting for our pitch lane. And the beauty of these presets is they're designed to work for virtually any bipolar lane, not just pitch or velocity. When using preset lanes, it's still possible to view the integer value of any step by dragging and hovering the mouse over it. Let's look at some more presets for our pitch lane. Upward and downward fade, flipped horizontally. Let's change the osmod mode, osmod amount, soft distortion, a ladder filter, cutoff, randomizing oscillator waveform selections by command clicking on them, back to our osmod modes, selecting multifold distortion, and increasing our global sequencer rate. So there we have a very brief overview of our sequencer grid. Let's initialize everything by clicking the Reset LED. This clears all lanes and all synthesizer settings to a default position. Now that we have a relatively clean slate, let's dive back into the sequencer grid and look at some of the global presets. There are 25 different preset types that affect all parameter lanes in a variety of different combinations. Let's select chiptune, the first on the list. The synth section remains the same, but the oscillator 1 and 2 tuning and transpose values are altered across the grid. Let's select something different. Let's try spots. Here we can see the filter cutoff running at 3/4 of the speed of the global rate. Oscillator 1 fine tuning, mid and high EQ values all modulated differently on the grid. When a value is being sequenced on a grid, a white rectangle is placed around its label name. Let's go back to our presets. Let's choose Victory. You'll notice there's lane data, but no assignment on any of the lanes. This has deliberately been left blank so the user can add his or her own assignments. Let's throw a bunch of parameter assignments in. By alternating between oscillator 1 and 2 settings, it's possible to create quite unique rhythmic patterns. Let's bring the filter cutoff all the way up. And to clear all lanes, you can simply click the Reset LED again. Let's dive into Zone's insert effects. Zone has 20 insert effects types, from stereo delay, ping pong delay, mod delays, bouncing ball delay, stereo width, 3 different reverb types, chorus, flanger, phaser, barber pole phaser, compressor, and decimator. The controls for each individual effect can be viewed by hovering the mouse over its knob. If the knob is grayed out, there's no assignment for that effect. Let's assign some effects parameters to the grid. Let's start with dry-wet mix. Once assigned to the grid, we can zoom in and start adding lane data. Let's sequence Control 1, sample rate. This won't do much until we bring bit depth into the grid, which is Control 2. Now bit depth and sample rate are varied together on the grid. Let's change lane speeds. There are 4 effects tabs within Zone. We're going to select the second slot and pick a chorus effect. Let's sequence the dry-wet balance on the grid. And now FX Control 1, the number of chorus voices. Let's assign a reverb type to effect slot 3, and again adjust the dry-wet mix on the grid. Now I'm going to randomize all lanes by clicking the dice icon. I'm going to destroy a couple of lanes to make it a little less cluttered in there. Let's reset and explore the EQ section. Zone has a 3-band parametric EQ that can be placed before or after insert effects. Each band has its own individual Q settings and gain control in dB. Since EQ gain is a bipolar value, when this is assigned to the grid, a default bipolar lane is created. Let's click and drag high EQ gain. and its Q value. And master pan, which is also a bipolar parameter. Let's pick a preset that alternates between both axes. And finally, master output gain. If we select 4 steps, we can create a sidechain pattern on every beat of the bar. We can adjust the depth of this sidechain volume ducking by adjusting each step individually on the grid. Let's look at one final very important feature of the sequence grid, and that's the lock icon. We're going to select a global sequencer parameter from our list and lock it in by clicking the lock icon. And what this means is, irrespective of which preset is selected in the synthesizer section, the global sequence data will remain the same, locked in. So we can cycle through various presets, but keep the sequence grid assignments exactly as they were. So if you find a unique combination of sequence grid elements and you don't wish to change those, lock them in and play with some of the different presets within Zone. Let's hear how this can sound. The same grid assignment is retained while presets are changed. Let's reset and hear how that preset should sound with its default grid assignment. And that concludes our 2-part Getting to Know Zone tutorial. Make sure to check back for frequent video updates and tutorials.